Guys, this is Tarot with Kittens, Weights, and Tarot, and today I want to wish America a happy 242nd birthday. 242 is actually relatively young compared to a lot of other countries, but anyway, I want to wish my country a happy birthday, a happy 4th of July, a happy Independence Day. Taking a cue from my homegirl, Dead Cheeky, she did something called My Immigration Story. And so I figured, since I'm celebrating my country's independence, that I would just maybe give you guys a little background on my family's history. Actually, since last summer, I've been doing a little bit of ancestry work, piecing together my family tree, both on my mother's side and my father's side. We're a really diverse family. I mean, if you can't tell, I'm like a Heinz 57 sauce. I'm really mixed. Which, you know, which is so interesting because it's hard for me to like look like certain people in the family because, like, you know, I mean, it's like, well, I kind of look like this person and this person and this person and this person because we have so many different awesome people in the family and so many different languages, and which is why I'm like a connoisseur of languages. Like, I love learning languages. I love hearing different languages being spoken. Like, I love language. And right now I'm trying to work on my French so that I can speak to my friend Steph, who lives in Belgium, who will be visiting me for the summer, and I am so stoked. I took the Ancestry.com DNA test, probably, I think maybe last summer or last year, something like that, and I got all my results back, and I mean, it was, for the most part, I knew about all of that DNA. It's just like now taking the family's, you know, documents and stories and putting it together along with my DNA. It's been this really awesome journey and I'm really enjoying it. This summer I plan on hiring some like family tree detectives from Ancestry.com to track down my Native American lineage. We know who was Native American in the family. We just want to be able to find out for sure what tribe they were from, because it was kind of like a conglomerate, like mixture of tribes where my family was from, and it's just kind of cool, I think, to be able to know like where exactly, like, which tribe they were. Grab a cup of tea or a glass of water or whatever. So let's dive into this family story. So I'm going to start on my mother's side, starting with my mother's father's side. They're all German. My grandfather's family came over from Mecklenburg, Germany, and Prussia. I mean, Prussia no longer exists, but it's kind of like, you know, on the what's kind of like Austria, Germany-ish area. Let's see, because I learned all my family history like when I went back to Ohio, where a bunch of my grandfather's family had ended up. They came over in the mid to late 1800s. They came through Ellis Island, looking for the American dream, basically. They went through Pennsylvania, through Illinois, and then landed in Ohio. One notable person on my grandfather's side was the very first pilot in Ohio was from my grandfather's family, which was pretty cool. We have a lot of people on that side of the family, all the German ancestors that came in, my relatives, serving in the First World War, Second World War, Korea, and Vietnam. Okay, and so then my grandfather and some of the other family members coming then from Ohio into San Diego. But that happened because of the marriage to my grandmother, who also, her family landed in Ohio. Okay, so now let's go to Grandma. So we know that Grandpa, his whole family came from Prussia, and which is no longer in existence, and Mecklenburg, Germany. Okay, I mean, there's Mecklenburg's massive, but it was the Schwerin region. I have to like go check, but okay, grandmother. Okay, so this one, they came a little bit later than my grandfather's family. my great grandmother was the first person to make it over from my grandmother's family from Munster, Ireland. So that's like the southern tip of Ireland. They were there was a lot of like religious angst going on in their country at the time, and this is like passed down from my grandmother and my great grandmother, and so they had come over. What's cool about my great great grandma is she used to claim to see the little people, leprechauns. Like she would say that she would see fairies and leprechauns, and and she believed in nature spirits and all those things were real. My great grandmother, actually, whose name is Madonna, which is like pretty cool. She was known as like the town. Well, I mean, everybody says she was a really like religious woman, like they were staunch Catholics, but she loved to read people's palms, and she would do it for free, and she would read your palm and like tell you exactly like what the best course would be to live a happy life. There's lots of newspaper clippings of every town lottery that she entered. This is in Ohio, Defiance, Ohio. She always won. And she would feel like she owed it back to the community, so she would always give her winning checks back to the city, which I think is so interesting, because her family didn't have much. They lived rather meagerly. So she would play the lottery, win, and then give all the winnings back to the city because she figured the city needed it. So that's interesting about my great grandma. And then my grandmother, her church, her Catholic church, was directly across the street from my grandfather's Lutheran church. And so they fell in love when they were like teens, and they got married. My grandfather was in the Navy, and which landed him in the port of San Diego. And that's how they wound up here in San Diego. Okay, so that's my mother's side, coming from Ireland, coming from Germany, both coming through Ellis Island, however. Okay, so then we go to my father's side. There's a lot going on my dad's side. Okay, so we start with my dad's dad. So my dad's dad, my grandfather, he came to the United States through the United States Navy. According to my father, who also served, he served in the Army. And I mean, both sides of my family, we have a history of serving Marines, Army, Navy. There might have been somebody in the Air Force, but I'm pretty sure it's that. And then I have an uncle that was a sea captain, so that's like pretty cool for the Merchant Marines, which is neat. Okay, so yeah, my grandfather came from Cebu, Philippines. He went from Cebu to Manila. From Manila there, he joined the United States Navy, and then he was able to come over to the United States. My grandfather started off with nothing when he was here, and it was you could only have certain jobs in the Navy at that time, being of a certain ethnic background. So he was the cook on the ship, and in order to make extra money, he would box, so that he would do like little like boxing matches, I guess, with other sailors on the ship or just other people, and people would bet on him, and he always won. There's lots of pictures of my grandfather, like, which I thought was awesome. I was like, maybe that's where I got my strong back from, and like, I pack a pretty mean punch, and like, that was like my favorite thing to do when I did martial arts, was like, I love my punching and I love my kicking, because I have a pretty strong back for a girl. I can crank out like pull-ups like nobody's business. But anyway, my grandfather, while he was here, built himself up. He ended up having a restaurant in downtown, which downtown at the time, it was kind of like a seedy, it's not the cool like hip gas lamp district that it is now. It used to be kind of like, it was full of sailors, it was full of undesirables, it was full of, and so he had his restaurant called Chris's, which at night became a girly club. So it was restaurant by day, girly club by night. And my dad was the bus boy. Like he would like bus the tables and stuff. And any time there was like complaints of things getting a little out of hand, the cops would show up, and they really liked my grandfather. So they would just be like, hey, just keep it down over here. And so he was well loved by his community. My grandfather also had a car lot. He started a laundromat out of my grandmother's house, and then made enough money to own, like, have a laundromat. So he had a restaurant, he had a laundromat, he had a car dealership, and then he bought several properties here in San Diego. And yeah, so he was like the American dream. He was the American businessman. Okay, so then on my father's mother's side, so this is my Nana, my grandmother. So I have grandma and I have Nana. So my Nana, her mother was born here, but her mother's mother was not. So my great grandmother was born in Arizona. My grandmother, her daughter, was born in New Mexico. They had moved to New Mexico and eventually wound up here in San Diego. But if we start going back in the lineage, so my mother's mother, born here, her mother, born in Mexico, and her mother was full-blood native, and an indigenous person from northern Sonora, southern Arizona at the time. Like at that time, it was still part of Mexico, so like that was where the reservation was, and a few different types of bands of Indians lived. My great grandmother's daughter married a man who had become a Mexican citizen, but he had traveled from France, and they were the Perdues. And so after she had married, they call him the Frenchman. And he was apparently really tall. He was like, they said 6'5" with red hair, red beard. And so she married him, and they had come over to the United States, become citizens, and then had my great grandmother, and then my grandmother. My great grandmother, who was native, she had married another man who was Mexican, but his family had hailed from Spain. So very fair skin, blue eyes, light hair. And we have all these pictures, which is like really cool. I've been loving doing all of this. So yeah. And okay, so then my Nana's father, his family were immigrants from Italy, and determining by the last name, which was a French last name, they were probably on the border of like northern Italy, France, Sweden kind of area, because they were all very fair skinned and very, very tall. There are some tall people in my Nana side of the family, and and actually both my grandmothers were taller than me. So like I'm 5'8", my Nana was 5'9", and my grandma was 5'10". And so there were some freakishly tall Irish people on that side, like the tallest being 7 foot was one of my uncles. They're all in the 6 foot range. And then you got my Nana, who was tall, and her mother was tall. And there's just some tall people, and it's coming from that French in the family, which is, it's pretty neat to like trace that. And so the family that had immigrated over because the mother had passed away. So the father took his 3 daughters and came in through the port of San Diego. And this was very, very early turn of the century, like 1900s. And so one of the daughters ended up having a child out of wedlock. Being very Catholic, the father felt like this was shame, so had the baby, and the father forced the daughter to give the baby up because there was no father present. So What they did was they left my great grandfather, my great grandfather, was left at a train station with a note saying who the family was, who he was, and that they couldn't keep him, and they were hoping that somebody would find the baby. So after that, feeling such embarrassment, the father with the three daughters immigrated back to Italy. So they went back to their homeland. The baby, my great grandfather, the Italian baby, was found by a Mexican family, the Bernals, and that the Mexican family, the reason he was found there is because the man that found him, he was the train conductor, and so they took in the baby. They already had a few other kids, but they raised this baby as their own, and so later on, that boy's mother had come back from Italy to say, like, I'm your mother, I'm sorry I had to give you up, but by that time he didn't really want anything to do with her, and he told her to go away. I have a mother and father now. You left me. And that's, I mean, basically it, you know. So yeah, then my great grandmother, my great grandfather found each other, got married, had three kids. My Uncle Rudy, my Uncle Jack, and my Nana, or great Uncle Rudy, great Uncle Jack, and my Nana. And then later, I think they got a divorce. She married a Mexican man, and then they had one more daughter, and that's my great aunt Helen, who looks like a spitting image of my Nana. Like, it's so interesting. So yeah, my Nana ended up having 5 children here, and my grandma and grandpa on my mother's side had 5 children. Oh wait, no, wait. My Nana had 8 children. My grandma and grandpa had 5 children. And so on my, not on my dad's side, but on my mom's side, there are tons and tons of great grandbabies. Like, my cousins putting out a lot of babies. So yeah, so and our family keeps growing. So yeah, that's my my lineage, you know. So and it's interesting to kind of see, like, you know, how in the other countries, like, family wound up there. You know, I have a really good chunk of Polynesian in my blood, and of course there's, like, you know, the Irish and the German. There's like Scandinavian in there, and a lot of different parts of Asia, like Central Asia and things like that. And then you have like certain parts of Afghanistan and everything, and they think that that's due to like Genghis Khan's reign, and so that's, you know, and some people like fleeing from Asia landing in the Philippines, you know. And what's interesting about my grandfather is that he wasn't shy about telling people that he was descendant from, translation, witch doctors. And so he knew all about like herbs and healing, and like, you know, using hands for like energetic healing, and he tried to pass that down to my father, and my dad was like not having it because it wasn't cool. But yeah, my grandfather was really proud of like his Filipino heritage and being a healer from his homeland. So anyway, so that's my family history. My German and Irish ancestors coming in mid to late 1800s, early 1900s through Ellis Island, eventually making their way to San Diego. And then you have my grandfather coming in from Cebu, Philippines through the Navy. And this was like 1930s. You have my Nana's family coming in from Mexico, natives, and Spain, France, and her father's family immigrating in from Italy. So yeah, that's basically my heritage, and I think that's what America is. We're just one big melting pot, and the more I study language and learn, you know, all these different languages, which is awesome because when I sing opera, I have to be able to pronounce languages perfectly as if I were a native speaker. And so I'm really into like the languages and culture, and I love seeing how certain words and pieces of words, and you know, they're they're in the English language. Like, you can see cultures in our language. It's fascinating. I love it. And I hope you guys enjoyed this. Happy 4th of July again. Happy Independence Day and happy birthday, America. And yeah, so if you guys dug this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to click subscribe, and don't forget to click that notification bell for more videos just like this. And have an awesome day. All right. Peace, love, and chicken grease. Peace out, America. America.